Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz. This is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Tuesday, July 9th, 2024. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my daily rundown best bet in the MLB, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Tuesday in Major League Baseball. First up, we see the Chicago Cubs taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Shota Imanaga and Dean Kramer are your starters. Imanaga's had a quality start in 4 of his last 5 games. It was really that one game against the Mets where he gave up those 10 earned runs where he really struggled. But even if he pitches a quality start in this one, I don't know if it's going to be enough for a win. The Orioles have been strong against lefties in the last month. They're top 15 in ISO and OPS with a pretty low strikeout rate to go with it. You got Dean Kramer on the other side for the O's, who pitched really well in his first start back from the injury. He wasn't pitching too well in the rehab starts, but all that matters is the major league stuff. And we saw 5 innings of shutout ball against the Mariners with 8 strikeouts in a 4-1 Orioles win. I know that's the Mariners, a team that strikes out quite a bit and has had some offensive struggles recently, but the same thing goes for the Chicago Cubs. In the last 30 days, Chicago's ranked 28th in baseball in isolated power against righties, not much better in team OPS, and a 25% strikeout rate, which is the 4th highest in baseball. So I got to go with the Baltimore Orioles in this game on the money line at Camden Yards. Next up, we see the New York Yankees taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. Big-time rivalry in the AL East. Carlos Rodon and Ryan Pepiot are your starters. This is an interesting matchup here. I think it's going to be a competitive series, but in this first game, I'm leaning towards the Yankees, even though I've been quite critical of Carlos Rodon this year, mentioning the not so great expected numbers at the very beginning of the season. We did expect some regression. We saw that towards the middle to end of June, where in a 3-start stretch against the Red Sox, Braves, and Blue Jays, he gave up 5 earned runs, 7 earned runs, and 8 in those 3 Yankees losses. And while his last game was still another Yankees loss and a couple of home runs given up, I do think it was a step in the right direction for Rodon. He went 5 1/3 innings, so just 2 outs shy of a quality start, giving up the 3 runs, but he had 8 strikeouts in that one as well. Back-to-back games with 8+ strikeouts. The Rays are not an easy matchup, but I do think Rodon will be the better option in the end of this game because Ryan Pepiot, while I do think he has a lot of potential and he's got great strikeout stuff, recently, I haven't liked what I've seen from him. He's not pitching deep into ball games. We saw in another game where he was pulled, pretty early in the start, 4 innings of work against the Royals. He only gave up 2 runs, but that was enough for the Royals to go on to win that game. And now Tampa Bay is 1-4 in Pepiot's last 5 starts. He only went 3 1/3 at Pittsburgh against the Pirates, only 4 2/3 against the Braves. So, he's really running into a few innings, either 1 or 2 innings where the pitch count goes way up, the control goes off, and teams are able to, work the pitch count and get him out of the ball game. And I worry about that against this Yankees lineup. We know the Yankees, patient lineup. Guys like Aaron Judge and Juan Soto can certainly, draw a lot of pitches. They can get on base via the walk, but they're also just dangerous hitters in general. And the Yankees, it's been a disappointment for them, the last month or so, you could say. But there's still a dangerous lineup against right-handed pitching, and I still think they can get to Pepiot for a few runs. I mean, so far this season, Pepiot on the road, a 3.6 ERA. At home, 4.93 with a 1-3 losing record. I got to go with the Yankees. I don't love Rodon, but I do think he's going to get the run support this one. I'm going to go with the Yankees in the money line. Next up, we see the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Detroit Tigers. Ben Lively and Kenta Maeda are your starters. Kenta Maeda has struggled this year with an ERA just below 7. He struggled overall, but also recently with giving up 9 earned runs in that last game against the Twins. While he's been better at Comerica Park, it's just not enough for me to take a chance with him in this spot. He does not have great numbers against the current Guardians hitters in his career. It's only 66 plate appearances, but it's a very low 9% strikeout rate, which the Guardians do a great job already at limiting strikeouts. They're usually in that 15 to 20% range. In the last month, they're at 18.5%, but 9% is extremely low. And with a high expected slugging percentage to go with it, I think the Guardians get to Maeda early and often. And I think the Tigers could chip in a few runs. I love this Guardians bullpen. I think it's one of the best bullpens, if not the best bullpen in baseball. But Ben Lively's given up a home run in 3 of his last 4 starts, despite not really facing tough lineups recently. And I think he's been, a little bit worse on the road with an ERA at 3.6. He's still pitched really well this year, but I think the Tigers can find a solo home run or 2 against them and get us over this number here in Detroit, Cleveland. Next up, we see the Philadelphia Phillies taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. We see Bobby Miller and Zach Wheeler as your starters. I'm rolling with the Dodgers in this game. I think we're getting a great price with LA. I know Bobby Miller has struggled this year with his control, but the Phillies have a pretty low walk rate recently against righties. I think this is actually a decent matchup for him. And Zach Wheeler has pitched really well this year, especially at Citizens Bank Park. However, his numbers against the current Dodgers hitters aren't the best. He's got a sub 20% strikeout rate, which is pretty low for a guy like Wheeler. And the expected slugging is also pretty steep at about 46, 460. And when you look at the Dodgers in the last month, even without Mookie Betts, they're still top 5 in OPS and ISO against right-handed pitching, high walk rate, low strikeout rate. I think they can get to Wheeler for a few runs. I think Bobby Miller may not be perfect, but I think he'll be decent in this spot. I think it's a decent matchup, like I said. And even if Harper and Schwarber return to the lineup, which it looks like they very well could, I still like the Dodgers at this kind of price on the money line on the road. We're not going to get prices like this with LA very often this season. So give me the Dodgers on the money line in this one. Next up, we see the Colorado Rockies taking on the Cincinnati Reds. Cal Quantrill and Frankie Montas are your starters. Cal Quantrill's been the most competitive starting pitcher in this Rockies rotation this year. Even on the road, he's been able to go out there and give the Rockies a solid chance to win a ball game. And we've seen him, when he's been on the mound on the road, the Rockies have taken down some tough teams like the Minnesota Twins, the St. Louis Cardinals, the San Diego Padres. They covered the run line in a one-run loss in extra innings against the Phillies. So he's been competitive out there, and I think he pitches pretty well in this game. Frankie Montas has been inconsistent this season. The Reds are 1-4 in his last 5 starts, so he's not really been a profitable starting pitcher at all this year. And I got to take a shot here with the Rockies plus the 1.5 runs on the money line in this one. Next up, we see the Oakland Athletics taking on the Boston Red Sox. Joey Estes and Brian Bayo are your starters. Last week was actually a pretty good week for the Oakland A's. They swept the series against the Angels. They were competitive against the Orioles. We saw them cover the run line in the first game of that series. They earned the absolute blowout win, 19-8 in the second game. They lost on Sunday 6-3, but it was a pretty good week for Oakland. And now you look at Joey Estes, who's in good form for the A's. His last 5 starts, 4 of those 5 games were 3 earned runs or fewer, including the complete game shutout in the last one against the Angels in that 5-0 victory. And with Brian Bayo not really having great numbers against these Oakland A's hitters in his career, and the fact that he struggled mightily at Fenway Park, a 6.21 ERA at home this season, to me, the value firmly lies with the Oakland Athletics, especially with the Red Sox coming off an emotional, competitive series against their rivals against the Yankees. This is a clear letdown spot. Give me the A's on the money line and run line plus the 1.5. Next up, we see the Washington Nationals taking on the New York Mets. Jake Irvin and Jose Quintana are your starters. A lot of people said that Jake Irvin should have been an all-star in the National League, and I can't disagree. I mean, a 2.8 ERA, a 1.0 whip is 8th best in baseball. He's in great form, and we saw him, we saw the same pitching matchup last week in a Nationals victory, 1-0. Jake Irvin went 8 innings of one-hit baseball with 8 strikeouts in that one. And while Quintana also pitched well, he had 7 innings of shutout ball himself. He only had 1 strikeout and 3 walks in that game. And you look at the expected numbers, they're not great for Quintana. He's got a 5.34 expected ERA. His expected batting average is in the bottom 7th percentile in Major League Baseball. So I think the Nationals can get to Quintana more than I think the Mets can get to Irvin. I like the Nationals in this game on the money line. Next up, we see the Kansas City Royals taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. Michael Wacha and Andre Pallante are your starters. Now, I do think it's beneficial for the Royals for them to get that day off after the Coors Field series against the Rockies, but I still don't love this matchup for him. St. Louis, Pallante's pitched well recently. His last 5 starts, 4 of those 5 games were 1 earned run or fewer, so he's definitely sharpened up after a tough start to the season, and the Cardinals are now 4-1 in his last 5 games. And Michael Walker's pitched well, and even on the road, sub-4 ERA, but you look at the bullpens between these two teams. St. Louis, I've mentioned, I think one of the better bullpens in baseball. Kansas City could be one of the weaker bullpens. You look at the expected numbers, they're ranked dead last in baseball in xFIP at 4.63. I got to go with the St. Louis Cardinals in this matchup on the money line. Next up, we see the Miami Marlins taking on the Houston Astros. Trevor Rogers and Ronel Blanco are your starters. The Astros are playing great baseball. They just ran into a hotter team this weekend in Minnesota. I mean, the Twins are just crushing the ball against righties and lefties. And, even though the Astros have been one of the hotter teams in the American League, it was just, it's going to be a tough series on the road. But you return home here, you're facing the Marlins, who've been one of the weaker teams in baseball offensively and even in the pitching staff. Rogers, who is pitching, he's definitely trending in the right direction. He didn't pitch too well in that last game against the Red Sox. He was only able to go 3 innings in that game. He had 6 strikeouts, but he gave up 3 walks, 5 base hits, and 2 earned runs. So a lot of base runners to give up and only 3 innings of work. And now you're facing the Astros, who we know are a really tough lineup to face for a lefty. Blanco's pitched well recently. I got to go with the Astros here on the run line at home. Next up, we see the Minnesota Twins taking on the Chicago White Sox. Bailey Ober and Eric Fedde are your starters. Tough game here because the Twins, we've mentioned how well they played the last couple of weeks or so offensively. Bailey Ober's in great form. He's given up 1 earned run or fewer in 3 of his last 4 starts. However, Eric Fedde's also pitched really well at home this season. A sub-2 ERA, similar to a guy like Cal Quantrill, like we just talked about with the Rockies. Playing for teams with pretty bad losing records this year, but Fedde and Quantrill are guys that can keep their teams in ball games, give their teams chances to win, even against some tough teams like the Cleveland Guardians, where Fedde went 6 innings, 1 run, and it was good enough for the White Sox to go on to win 8-2 in the end. I still think the Twins win this game. I trust their bullpen a lot more. So even if it's a close game early on, I think the Twins will find a way to win this game and cover the run line. So give me Minnesota here laying the 1.5 runs, but also take them on the money line as well. Next up, we see the Texas Rangers taking on the Los Angeles Angels. Max Scherzer and Roansy Contreras are your starters. It's funny, when you look at both of these starting pitchers and you look at their last games, Max Scherzer against the Padres on the 4th of July, 6 1/3 innings, 3 earned runs given up and a home run. Roansy Contreras in 2 2/3 innings on the same day, 2 earned runs, 3 total runs in those innings, and then a 5-0 loss for the Angels. But both of these starting pitchers' final lines could have been a lot worse if it wasn't for some miraculous defensive plays. Kevin Pillar of the Angels robbing J.J. Bleday of a home run in the beginning. I think it was the first at-bat of the game in the first inning. And then Max Scherzer and Wyatt Langford for the Rangers in left field robbing a 2-run home run against Ha-Seong Kim in, I believe, the second inning or third inning of that game. So, Contreras only would have been a solo home run. Scherzer would have gave up 2 more runs and another bomb. I do think that their final lines are a little bit misleading, and I think we see a higher scoring game in this one. Scherzer, the fact that he's only had 11 strikeouts in 60 2/3 is pretty concerning for me. We consider him one of the better strikeout pitchers in baseball, and he's given up sharp contact like we saw in that last game, another home run to Profar in the middle innings. And I think the Angels, who have been decent against right-handed pitching in the last month, can get to him for a few. The Rangers lineup looks improved. Contreras has not been great in that starting pitching role, so I'm going to lean towards the over, but I also think in a competitive game, I'm going to take the 1.5 runs with the Angels at a really good price in this one. I think it's going to be a back-and-forth kind of game. I'm going to take the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Atlanta Braves taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Charlie Morton and Zach Gallen are your starters. Gallen wasn't great in that last start against the Dodgers, but he was good enough for the Diamondbacks to go on to win that game. 9-3 the final score. He was able to get that run support. I think he gets some run support here, and we know Gallen's a lot better at Chase Field with a sub-2 ERA so far this season. Morton's been inconsistent this year. It's tough to know what you're going to get from Charlie Morton this year, but he's got an ERA above 4 on the road. He's not been great recently. The last game, 3 earned runs, 2 bombs against the Giants, and a 4-2 loss. He pitched well against Pittsburgh before that, but against the Yankees at Yankee Stadium, 5 more earned runs and a bomb. His control's been off and inconsistent, like we've said. So I got to go with the Diamondbacks in this one on the money line. Next up, the San Diego Padres taking on the Seattle Mariners. Logan Gilbert and Adam Mazur are your starters. Now, there's no doubting that Logan Gilbert's a better starting pitcher in this matchup, but for me, when you look at the Mariners' offense, it has been dreadful in the last 30 days, and overall this season, this is the highest strikeout rate. The Mariners have the highest strikeout rate in Major League Baseball. In the last month, it's above 30% against righties. Mazur may not be my favorite option, but fact of the matter is the Padres are 3-0 in his last 3 starts, and those were wins over the NL Central leading Milwaukee Brewers, one of the more profitable teams in baseball in the Nationals, and the defending World Series champion Rangers in that last game. And his control's gotten better after walking 4 guys in his Major League debut, 6 guys not too long after against the Mets. He gave up no walks in that last game against the Rangers, and the strikeout numbers were strikeout per inning in that last start. Gilbert on the other side, like I said, he's a better option, but recently, he's not been the best. We saw 4 earned runs given up against the Orioles on July 3rd, and that was at T-Mobile Park. Now you're facing a Padres team that's been very solid against right-handed pitching recently. I got to go with the San Diego Padres in this game on the money line. And the final game we're going to talk about for the Tuesday card in Major League Baseball, the Toronto Blue Jays and the San Francisco Giants. Yusei Kikuchi and Blake Snell are your starters. I actually like this matchup for Blake Snell. I think this is a good spot for him to come back from injury. We know he pitched really well in the rehab starts leading up to this first game back. His strikeout numbers were off the chart. His control was a lot better. He wasn't giving up as much sharp contact. I think against a Blue Jays team we know has been a big disappointment offensively, this is a good matchup for Snell, especially at a pitcher-friendly park like Oracle. And Yusei Kikuchi's not been great recently. His last start maybe a step in the right direction against the Astros, but still gave up another home run and a 9-2 blowout loss for Toronto. The Blue Jays are 0-4 in his last 4 games. I like San Francisco to back up Blake Snell offensively. They've been great against lefties this year. And I'm going to go with the Giants on the money line and run line in this one to end the night. And that's it. Those are the games for Tuesday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pickdawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.